Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, the podcast on the business of video production.
Creatives Grab Coffee is hosted by Dario Nuri and Kirill Lazarov from Labs Productions. Our goal is to share knowledge and experiences from video production professionals around the world. Whether you're a freelancer looking to start your own business or a seasoned business owner aiming to scale your company, this is the show for you.
Join us as we develop a community of like-minded creatives looking to learn and help each other grow. Welcome to the business of video production. Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee.
Before we get started with the show, let's go over today's sponsors.
Do you have a shoot in Toronto? Do you need crew or a strong production partner to help you with your project? Labs Productions is one of the top production companies in Toronto and your go-to video partner.
With our strong creative skills and extensive network, we can help you achieve your goal. Labs Productions is able to offer you production services, white label services, or finder fees for project handoffs.
Reach out to us on our website at labsproductions.com to learn more.
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group band packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you, I'll be waiting for you, and we're all gonna have a real good time.
And now, let's begin the show. Guys, welcome finally to Season 4 or the 2024 year of Creatives Grab Coffee. We're going to be kicking it off a little bit differently this year with a few different kinds of content. Like, for example, today's episode is going to be a little bit more focused on a certain topic rather than just, having like a general discussion, seeing where it goes. We've been skating by on that approach with our episodes for the last 3-4 years. So we figured it's time to bring a little bit of structure to the podcast. But anyway, so today, Dario, what are we going to be talking about today?
Okay, so today's topic-based episode is on 7 tips to include in your video production contracts.
Yeah.
And there's also a bonus one at the end of it.
A potential bonus one as well. And the reason we figured this would be a good one to kind of start off with is with any business with service offerings, you want to have a good baseline, and contracts are the perfect place to start. When you're starting off, you want to make sure that your client and you are both on the same page of what to expect from each other. And we have found that these 7 specific tips should be more commonly placed in contracts and not always are. So, Dario, do you want to take it away with what the first tip is?
Yeah, so the first one's very straightforward. It's just about having a very detailed service description. So for example, what I include in ours is always like elements that are in your proposal, pretty much. So the exact needs of what the client wants for the project, what you're going to offer, the timeline, and like the project costs, the revision process, things of that nature. Like I try to be as detailed as I can in that section of the contract. So again, I literally just copy over stuff that is in the proposal document and try to incorporate you don't have to overdo it, but just essentially just copy over most of the information that you guys were discussing. Because again, once if for some reason you guys ever get into like any
disputes
or bumps on the road about what you guys were meant to offer and what they received and everything, you can always just refer back to the contract and say, hey, you guys came to us for this, and this is what we said we were going to do. These were the dates, and there it is.
The biggest reason also is because scopes change sometimes, and that is fairly common in our industry. Like, for example, when you guys might agree on one thing that you need. Like say initially you realize you need only one video deliverable, but then as you go throughout the project, the client realizes, oh, we actually need 2 or 3 deliverables to actually make this effective, right? And because you've already determined in the initial scope that it was just one, they will assume and understand that more deliverables will cost more. If you don't, for example, include what I guess this is more so like a deliverables thing, which isn't one of the next tips, but this example kind of fits here as well. Whereas like if the scope changes and you haven't defined the scope in the beginning, there could always be that gray area where it's like, oh, we assume that this was part of the original, right? So this just essentially makes sure that everyone knows what to expect from each other at this point.
To add to what you were saying, you could make amendments to the contract if like what they require is greater than what you guys agreed upon. You just have to add it to the appendix. There should always be like an appendix A in your contract, and you just need to add it in and then just get them to sign off on it. That's a key part.
There's a little bonus tip for you guys. Keep an appendix A for amendments.
Yeah, because what we used to do in the past with this section, it was very basic. Like it would be like we are creating, Labs Productions is creating a promotional video for blank, and we might just put like the final due date, and that's it. It was like almost like a sentence or two. But over the years, we just decided to cover our behinds a little bit more and put as much detail as we can. So again, even putting like reference videos, we include that in. All the dates for all the stages of the production are included in there.
Timelines.
And timelines. And I basically copy over like the invoice in a way as well. And I put it in there under like project costs. Like it's literally just the invoice copied over into there.
Yeah, it's basically just putting all the necessary information and everything in there. And basically with the invoice, that's going to be part of one of the next tips as well. So the second tip is the second tip is having transparent payment terms. It's a little bit of a mouthful for some reason for me. But Dario, do you want to kind of go over a little bit about what that entails?
Yeah, so for this part, what we used to have in the past is just, again, one line saying we are owed this much plus HST, so subtotal plus HST. And then now what we do is we put, like, because our invoicing, how it works is that it's more or less, it's pretty much 3 invoices that we send the client. It'll either be deposit plus most of the project cost plus the final remaining amounts, or it'll be like project management fee and pre-production plus, and then the second one would be the production invoice, and the third one would be post-production invoice. We basically just structure it like that, and we put like the due dates for each one, and then the consequences also of not being paid on time for each one. So for example, for like the first invoice, if it's issued at contract signing, which is when they sign it, and then it's due at the same time, roughly, or by a certain date. Otherwise, the whole project can get canned. So we kind of put all those terms in.
Or there are delays. Essentially, there are delays. Like, for example, if you have a certain date where everything needs to be booked for and you haven't paid any of those initial invoices to book our team, then we can't move forward because things change all the time. We need to book people and make sure that they're compensated properly as well. And this also is a good thing for the client because this locks people down, right? Because if someone's not paying someone to book them in for a date and they have to wait a long time to get it, other projects come up all the time, especially when you're dealing with a lot of freelancers. This is an industry of freelancers. It's rarely the case where you go to a video production company and everyone from the PA to the director is on staff at that business. It's extremely rare. There are some companies only that operate in that model, but those are on a much larger scale. Most of the time you're dealing with a core team, and then production crew is usually freelance based from then on. So having good transparent payment terms and being very open about it helps make it less of a taboo subject for a lot of people. So You know, it's just part of business. There shouldn't be any issue talking about money. It's a very straightforward process. Like, yep, this is when it's due. Let's do it. Let's book everybody in and let's move forward. And because of this, you and I never really have these issues now with clients, right?
Yeah, we were having issues because we were creating a problem out of it for ourselves. Because again, we didn't have these terms in place. And then, like you mentioned, it was taboo for us to talk about money with the client. But that was really because it was taboo for us, not for the client. Client didn't really care.
Yeah.
So, because they have a lot of other vendors, and bigger vendors don't even, it's not taboo for them to say, hey, you got to pay by this date, otherwise you don't get your stuff, right? Actually, I noticed that ever since we did add like these terms, and the fact that we do go over it with them when they're signing the contract, they're much quicker to pay, especially at least the first invoice.
Because they're also understanding it. They also essentially will understand what those are. Because sometimes when things are moving really quickly, I feel like, I don't know if clients always read through every single minute detail in a contract, or at least they might skim through certain things. So at least highlighting these key things is just to kind of help guide them. It's just to let them know this is all important information in the contract. Make sure that we're all on the same page there.
Sometimes they're still a little delayed with that, though.
Yeah,
so I have to send them an email saying, "Hey, we're not booked in yet. So when is the payment coming?" And then they panic and they quickly pay it off.
Yeah. You know, the other thing is having these different payment cycles helps keep cash flow within the business and protects everyone within it, because everyone has these things included in their contracts from different experiences. And I remember one standout was from way back in 2014, just when we were starting the business. We had this one project where a client out in, I think it was Whitby, they sent us some video work that they had shot, and they hired us just to simply do post-production. We did a one invoice type thing where once we complete all the videos, they'll pay us for it. And it wasn't a lot. It was like, I think we did like 14 or 15 videos for like $1,500. You know, it was early days, right?
It was $1,200, and they didn't want to pay. We settled on $900.
That's what it was. Yeah. Well, what happened was we did all the work. We sent them the first round of revisions. Everything was there. They're like, okay, this is great. Thank you. We'll start reviewing and then move forward. 2 weeks pass by. We don't hear anything. And then they email us saying, yeah, we actually realized we don't really need these videos to be done anymore, so we don't want to pay you. And we're like, sorry, what? After we've done all the work. Oh yeah, and because of that, we realized, okay, there's a lot of loopholes in our process now if this is what's going on. So let's protect ourselves going forward. But I'm sure a lot of other people in our industry have had similar situations where clients or leads decided all of a sudden, no, I don't want to pay anymore. But
you know, that is a topic for another day. But we can briefly touch upon how we're mitigating situations like that now as well. Because the thing with that situation was that it was a new client, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that always stresses me out a little bit every time there's a new lead that then becomes a client.
Yeah.
Is that, oh man, are they going to pay or not? Right? Am I going to have that situation where it might not go through, or am I going to have to fight for this? I swear to God, we've only had bad situations like that like 2 or 3 times in our whole 10-year run, but it's still something I get nervous about until like we get the first
9. We're still at 9. We hit 10 years in September, so that's we can't say that celebration just yet, right?
Rounding up.
Don't round up yet, because we got a plan for that. It's gonna be fun.
So one thing we actually started implementing it this month is a deposit. I don't know why we never thought about it, but we're doing like a 30% deposit on the whole project, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the first invoice, is essentially the deposit. And then
these are for new clients. Just keep in mind, like people that you don't have relationships with. Once you have built a good relationship with a client that you've worked with for a number of years, you already know what their process is like. They know what your process is like. you don't need to go that far in that situation. Like, for example, we have one client that we've been working with for more than 3-4 years at this point, and it's very simple. We even just have gotten it down to the process of 50% at the beginning, 50% at the end. Keeps everything streamlined and straightforward, and everybody's happy, and it's, yeah.
And I would say if it's, it's applicable if it's a new client and their company is, I don't know, like maybe I haven't heard about them before. If it's like a blue chip type of company, I wouldn't be too worried. But if it's like one
TD.
where it's like, yeah, like if TD's coming, I'm not going to be too worried. But like,
Yeah.
if it's a company, they're still around and everything, but they're not as commonplace as
Yeah.
something like a bank might be, then yeah, I'd say putting the deposit in and it being due right away is a huge relief,
Yeah.
And I think the easiest way to pitch it is while you're going through your whole sales funnel, I was just saying for new clients, we have a deposit system in place. So I think just put it in there and that's it.
It helps set expectations and allows everyone to kind of move forward. But anyway, I think we covered the second tip pretty
there's one more. Sorry, there's one more thing I would add in there.
Sure thing.
One thing you should also add in this section is that any amount outside of what you just stated, past a certain amount, you need to get written approval from the client. So, for example, we have it set to anything above 0. Like when you get approval from them, we used to have $50 there, but then some of the other bigger clients said we have to change it to 0. So I kind of left it at that. But you could set it to whatever, right? You could say anything over $100, you need to get written approval from you. So that,
you mean like expenses,
like,
like production expenses?
Yeah. So like, let's say you had to get a backdrop for this, and it's outside of the scope of that. If it's above 0, you have to get approval from them before you go ahead and purchase it, right?
Yeah.
If you leave it at $50 or whatever, $100, then you don't need to get written approval and you can add it in. But it's something you would need to let them know ahead of time. It's like, hey, if we have to spend over this amount, we have to get approval from you. But under that, no.
No matter what it is, you have to let the client know, just so they know what to expect. So it's not like you're just piggybacking off of your contract terms to try to purchase equipment or gear that or resources that may not really be necessary. But it's just to kind of help manage trust with the client. But that's like that's a whole separate detail there. But
and last one for that.
There's a lot with this one.
It's really just this last bit. If there's an overdue invoice, you can put a term. You should put a term in there for overdue invoices where you would charge like 20. We have it set at 22% per annum, which means per year, on every on the overdue date. Let me see what I put here. Interest at the rate of 22% per annum will be charged on any invoices overdue from the date of receipt of the invoice by the client until paid. Again, normally you wouldn't charge it, but this is if you're dealing with a client that's been a big pain and they've been skimping out. I think it's good to put it in there.
This is
22% is like credit card
this
interest fee, basically. So,
yeah, this is essentially to protect yourself against the clients that are on their way out, that you know that you're not going to want to work with going forward, who have caused issues and challenges in this regard. It's just to kind of help yourself, or to protect yourself in the worst case scenario in that sense. Obviously, none of us want to ever go through a situation like this, and we don't expect this to happen with clients. But again, this is what contracts are there for. It's just to make sure everybody's protected.
Yeah, because if you ever have to go through the court system because they're not paying, then you can always say, hey, you also have to pay the penalty for not paying on time.
Yeah. Anyways, moving on now to the next point is one thing you got to make sure every contract has is a robust confidentiality clause. So, Dario, what does that necessarily entail typically?
It's basically the NDA. It's a non-disclosure agreement. Some people have this separately, and sometimes a client might ask you to sign theirs. For us, we just included it in our contract, and I let them know of it, and it kind of simplifies the whole process. Sometimes they might even make you sign theirs even though you have it in your contract, But it's just about showing the client that you're pretty much a professional and look, I already included it. Don't worry about it. And it essentially covers the basically lets the client know you're not going to disclose any of their personal information. That's basically it. There's a lot, like it's over a page long in our contract, so I'm not going to go through it. But it just has like a definition of what the whole thing is, like what is proprietary information or confidential information, then the agreement portion of it, like what we agree to do with regards to that information that we're given, and then what constitutes a breach, and then just like a miscellaneous section. Like we're not going to go through it because it's very long, and you can find like a boilerplate version online anyhow, but it's just something good to include. You don't need to include it, but it's just good to have.
It's good to have it because it shows the client that you're also thinking of them in this. It's not like the contract is there just to protect you. It's there to protect both parties. That's essentially what contracts are for. And this clause also goes both ways, right? For example, if you have a certain way about how you go about your process or any proprietary.
I don't think it doesn't cover. I don't think it covers. No, the way we have it set up, it doesn't cover.
Oh, really? Okay.
It does. It's really like this is. It could go worse for you, including it, but it's just meant to show the client that you're a professional.
Okay.
It's basically saying I'm not gonna disclose your secrets to the public or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Next, we kind of touched upon this a little bit as an example in one of the previous tips, but the fourth tip is ownership and deliverables. And essentially what you need to do in this situation is discuss what the total amount of deliverables there will be for the project and who has the ownership of it for public release and things like that. Dario, do you want to go a little bit more in depth?
Yeah, like it doesn't discuss the total amounts. It just discusses like what we mean by deliverables. Essentially, the total amount would be something you include in like the very first thing we talked about, which was the service description. That's where you put like the total amount.
Yeah.
When it comes to like video deliverables, you're basically discussing what is like a deliverable, and in our case, for example, we differentiate between the final product and, for example, the raw files, because sometimes the client thinks that they also own the raw files, right? But we actually put it in the contract saying that no, what we mean by deliverable is the actual final video, unless in the service description, like it's included that they're getting the raw files. So we even put that there as well. It's only unless outlined in Exhibit A or whatever that the client is also getting the raw files. And we also put in that, for example, they're not owners of, like, for example, the rough or fine cuts. So any revision, like any version that is like a revision version, they don't own that. So they're not allowed to post like the V2 of that video. They're only allowed to post the final cut. So that protects us also from them posting something that's not good,
That's not up to scratch. Yeah.
Oh, actually, now that I think about it, the reason we put that in there is because let's say we did a V1 cut and then they wanted a completely different cut. If they owned the V1, they would essentially get two complete different versions. It might also be like two different videos, right? So that's also to protect us from that. I think that was the reason we included, we specified like the final cut. Because we have had some clients where like they wanted a complete different version. And they never really did post the alternate one, but they could have if they wanted to, right?
To be honest, though, I feel like that's not... Like, this shouldn't be an issue for a lot of clients because usually they only want the final version anyway. So it's well,
none of the stuff we talk about should be something that you actually have to like refer back to the contract and say, yo, like we signed on this, not that, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's like insurance. It's just there to protect you in case you need to be protected.
Yeah. With all that said, let's move on now to the sixth tip.
Hold on. we're not
Yeah, we
there
are.
yet. So no, we're not.
Oh, there's
'Cause,
still more?
Yeah. So I also put in that until we get paid, it's not considered a final video deliverable. So I also put it in there
Oh, yeah.
basically that until that final payment comes in, they're not allowed legally, you know?
Yeah.
And last one is just a promotional use.
Each
so-
one is the last one.
Well, you keep going to the next one. I'm not done going through
Go.
The promotional use bit is basically, I put in a term in there that says we're allowed to display all public videos. So the full, it's only a sentence long. I'll just read it.
Yeah.
Labs Productions reserves the right to display all final public video deliverables on its website, social media, and other means of marketing for promotional purposes without written consent of the client. So basically, we get to just showcase it in our portfolio. This section of the contract is often the one legal asks me to change if we're doing stuff with financial clients most of the time.
Yeah.
It's
If it's
internal,
usually-
but yeah, if it's internal,
It's usually
'cause-
internal, then that's when they do that. Like I've never had it where
Yeah,
if they're a public or if they're releasing something publicly, then and that they ask us to change this because it doesn't make sense. It's all there. It's like it's under fair. Honestly, I feel like it's under like a fair use to post a link that is already public. You know, when you think about it, it's
Yeah, but surprisingly, I still always get questions about that. They always ask, even though like it's like the language is very clear, I'll still get them asking, "Does this mean you'll post it on your web?" Like they ask me to clarify what it means, and it's like I always say, just like if it's private on your end, it's private on our end. If it's public on your end, it's public on our end, type of thing. That's it, really. But that's often the one that when it gets sent for legal review is the one that comes back that needs to be updated. Because I always when you send the contract, it's always a good what you should always say in the email is always ask them, here's a contract, let me know what legal says. So ask legal to review it, because then they'll always come back. And actually, one cool thing about that is that you'll often be able to fix up your contract by having their own legal team review it, because you have like lawyers with a lot of
improves
experience.
over time. Yeah.
Yeah, going through it and then like telling you, oh no, you got to change this to that. And obviously, it's not like they're trying to sabotage yours. They're just fixing up the language, especially if you're adding new terms. Like with ours, like we have updated it over the years. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so the way I write is not like a lawyer. But so they'll always edit it for me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I meant to say. Okay, perfect.
Perfect. And it's like, okay, now we keep it. It's like, yeah, this is a little quick tip about free legal advice, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, always ask their legal department to review it and tell you if it's good to go or if they want any changes. Because again, it always makes it seem like you're open, like it just avoids issues later down the line if anything does come up. But really, it's just to make sure, again, you guys are both on the same page. And added bonus, they'll fix up your bad grammar.
Crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
Yeah.
So you all good on this tip? Move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah,
we covered quite a bit. So the fifth tip is cancellation and rescheduling, and I feel like this has happened to every production company at one point or another, because sometimes things happen where a client needs to reschedule or cancel something last minute, and honestly, like, it happens. So it's not like you can expect that it won't happen no matter how tight your contract is. And sometimes there are acts of God. Like, for example, if you have like a CEO that has to come in to record something on a certain day and they're flying in from another country, their flight gets delayed or something like that, or something that is really out of the control. You can place terms in situations where that is where you can reschedule for that, but the point of this is essentially to make sure you're not lenient where a client chooses to cancel for just the sake of canceling at the last second, right? Like, do you want to go a little bit more in depth on that, Dario?
Yeah, like this is a problem we've dealt with a lot in the past, and even still to this day, like sometimes our projects get postponed and whatnot. The approach we've taken to this, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the contract details, is if it's a good client, like the first time we'll let it slide and we'll kind of say like, okay, this time we'll make an exception. But if it happens a second time, we're going to start adding a penalty to it. And we have made a recent client aware that we would have to add it's not really a penalty. It's more of like, I got to pay the freelance or something or something, right? Like,
yeah, because we're essentially booking the crew and the team for that day. So they've had to turn away work. We've had to turn away work for that day because of that case. And then if the client cancels at the last second without the chance for anyone to actually be able to potentially find other work, everyone's losing out, for faults that are not their own, right? So everyone needs to be compensated. At least this is, to be clear, this is on the production side of things. This doesn't mean that, like, say if a shoot is canceled or rescheduled, that the entire invoice or the entire project has to be paid for. It's more so specifically the production costs on that day specifically.
Yeah. Only again, because it's usually it's related to a shoot anyways, a shoot day, right? The time limit we put on it is that they need to give us at least 72 hours. We used to have 24 hours. I don't know why we put it at 24, because that's like the day before.
That's the day before.
Because I think what happened is we didn't have that, and then we had some clients canceled the day of, early on. Remember? This was early on. It happened a couple of times, and they were canceling the day of. And then we got annoyed with that, so we put 24 hours. And then I think just last year, we're like, why are we doing... I put a week, and then I was getting pushback from some clients when legal was reviewing it. So I put 72 hours.
I mean, to be honest, you can hold firm on your approach depending on what you want. Like, they can make legal can make suggestions too, but on situations like this, you have to also find what works for you and your business and your processes. If 72 hours is enough time, go for it. If you need a week, then that's another thing.
You might get pushback. I was getting pushback from legal on the week.
It's interesting. Maybe if it's like I guess it depends.
I think
legal wants to make it easier.
I think it was some legal departments were giving me giving me pushback, and then I also was thinking about the fact that on average a video is going to be about, the whole video process is going to be under a month, right? So like a week notice sometimes is too long. Because like, let's say on average, like it's about a week of pre-production.
What if it was 5 business days?
I don't think it would make it. It's too tech. I think 72 is fine. There was a reason. Saying, it was because depends. There was a reason. It was because, again, pushback, and then on average it shouldn't. We don't have that much time for most of the projects anyway. So it would be like early on in pre-production they would have to do the rescheduling. But usually a rescheduling happens, the week of production, right? It's very close to the production date something comes up.
Yeah, I guess it varies. And I think if you're doing bigger projects too, I think that's where this might also vary. I think the 72 hours is a good standard for straightforward corporate video content because there's more flexibility and things like that. But then if it's like much larger campaigns or projects where it's harder to reschedule and move things like that, then maybe there could be something longer, like a week or 2 weeks, depending on what kind of work or projects you're doing.
Yeah.
But again, it really depends. This is just our simple standard approach for, like, say, if you were to work on a corporate finance video or something like that.
Yeah, if you were working on a much bigger, like, commercial level project and they want to reschedule, like, let's say it's $50K and up type of production.
Yeah,
I would put at least a week.
The other thing is people are flying in sometimes for projects, like for example, like when I did that shoot for one of our clients last year where I had to fly out to Seattle and to North Carolina. Imagine if 24 hours before the shoot I'm at the airport. It's like, oh yeah, shoot is canceled. It's like, okay, all the tickets have been booked, all the time has been booked off, and then it's like, that screws up a lot of other aspects of the shoot, right?
There should probably be something in your contract with your freelancers as well, that has the same number in there as well, right? So if you're making them sign your contract, they should probably say, if like a rescheduling clause in there as well that matches the one in this contract. Because I'm just thinking about it again. The one we have here is kind of hefty, and from most of our projects is fine if we reschedule at least once. It won't cost us a lot, but let's say like we have a project where, again, it's like a commercial and it's like $50K and up just in production costs, and 72 hours before they let you know, and you have, like, let's say, for example, actors flying in, like you'd still have to compensate those people.
You're still screwed,
You'd be under on the production. So I would change that to probably a week or longer if we have a bigger project like that. And then we also have terms in there saying, like, if they break that, they owe the whole production cost, and we can't book in another date until that's paid.
Yeah.
Because think about it, you might be under if you have to pay everyone that was involved. Let's say something, at least 70%. Because that's in what their contract, that's in their contract or whatever. Then you'd be under on the project. So I would, like, again, you should put terms in there that really protect you, right? Yeah. Just in case. Because, again, if it's a smaller project, whatever. But if it's like a bigger one, that's what would probably scare me the most, is that, I might go under because of this.
Especially when you have more and more people involved that are important for the project. If you have, like you said, if you have to hire talent, whether they're flying in or not, like it's hard to organize things like that as well, to find people who are available, because you might book that particular talent because they were right for the project, but they're only available that day, and then you cancel, and then they're not available for the next 2-3 weeks. Then what are you doing for your project? Then your project gets delayed at that point too, right? So this is a way to also help protect your client, to make sure that everything is in place to be there for the shoot. But again, figure it out your own situation. What? Sorry,
go ahead. Figure out your own situation.
Yeah, I was just saying, just determine what's right for your situation, right? What's right for that specific project. Every project is different. Weigh in what you think is what kind of workload or resources are gonna be needed for that project, and then just adjust the details in your contract accordingly. What we're just suggesting is like a good baseline to start with.
Yeah, and you touched on like the timeline gets extended and you're no longer available. There's three timeline extension parts that we have in our contracts, and the first one is just like a regular timeline extension. The second one is like timeline extensions resulting in crew unavailability, and then the third one is timeline extensions resulting in lapsed productions unavailability. Those are good ones to have as well, because the first one just really deals with what happens if the timeline gets extended. So for example, here what I have is if it gets canceled less than 72 hours and they don't get a refund, just kind of clarifies like the details of that extension. The one resulting in crew unavailability, so if a crew member was specific to that project and they're no longer available, they can't just say like, oh no, we still need to do it on this date with that person. Let's say, for example, I don't know, like let's say, what do I have here? Like, let me, I haven't really gone through these since I put them in the contract, but additional cost of their...
I think you touched upon
No. The key thing is the fee will be subject to variances depending on the new freelancer / crew member that takes on the project.
Right.
I put that we don't guarantee the same rate as the previous individual, nor that the rate will be discounted based on the work already completed. Yeah, this was mainly because of editors. So, Kirill, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so like, for example, like a lot of production companies, we hire and source out other talent, not just for production side of things, but also on the post-production. And editors all have their own different processes. That's actually a big one that can very much factor in the costs as well. Some have different day rates, some work very differently compared to other ones. So this essentially helps us cover our bases if we need to adjust the entire process. So for example, if we were planning to do it with one editor whose process was to get it done within a certain timeline or in a certain type of review process, that's what we had planned for. But if it was canceled and they're not available, we have to work with a new editor or a different editor who works a little bit differently. So like obviously Laps has a certain level of standard of production quality and value that we go through, but a lot of the time we still have to adapt to how other people also work, right? And that is what essentially this clause helps kind of cover our bases on when that happens.
Yeah, we mainly added it because of editors, but I guess it's also applicable to other crew members as well. I would say more so like for cinematographers, not so much like makeup, audio, grip, or gaff, because those prices are kind of standardized. I think the cinematographer one is the one that has like more of a variance. Obviously, you should always be adding your juice on top of whatever the rate is. But let's say, I don't know, for some reason, most of the cinematographers you need for that day, most of the cinematographers that you know for that day are busy, and you have to go, one level up above your regular rate. Then it kind of protects you on that end as well. For the part resulting in our unavailability, what I put in there is basically we'll have to compensate. Oh, okay. So basically, essentially, if we're no longer available for the project, then they have to compensate us for all the work done until then, and we're not on the hook for not finishing the project if we're no longer able to do it based on the timeline requirements they have. That's what that clause is there for. Essentially,
what this covers is, for example, if you've determined a timeline with a client on when certain deadlines are going to be there for deliverables, but you also outline, for example, when we send you a draft, we need the notes within 24 to 48 hours because that'll keep us on track. And then if we send a draft and it takes how long, like say a week for us to get the notes, that delays the entire project by a week, not at our fault, but because the client needed more time to look into it, right? So this is what you would have to discuss also with your client at the beginning of the project. It's like, hey, the way we work when we send over a draft, we need notes within 48 hours. Is that enough time for you to be able to review everything? And if they say, this is where they can say, no, we need maybe at least 3-4 days because we have to look at it, then send it over to so-and-so, they have to look at it, then we have to discuss and confirm. It's like, okay, then from there you can determine, all right, say you need an extra week between each draft, then you can give an alternate timeline based on that. So this is where you determine a lot of these things early on in the project discussion, but essentially if it takes longer to get notes, then
I would say the reason we put that in if you're referring to that one, it wouldn't be because
that's one.
Yeah, not if it's like a week delayed. It's more like it's been like 3 months, and it's like you're still on like waiting to get feedback on like the rough cut type of situation. It's more like for those type of situations.
These are outliers, the ones that you're talking about. I'm talking about the more common ones of why certain projects can get delayed here and there. I guess this is not so much about our unavailability, but this can also outline why projects can get longer. What you're also talking about is those outliers where we've done the work with the client, and then all of a sudden we've asked them. We're the last ones to have emailed them and asked them. It's like, hey, send us the notes. Here's the video. You can comment on Frame.io and let us know your feedback. And then they just, for like 2-3 months, just completely disappear on us. And then maybe after that, they're like, oh, I guess we didn't finish this project. Let's move forward, right? It's like look, we're not, at the end of the day, we're not there to chase our clients, right? Some people will say like, oh, why don't you just send follow-up emails? And we've done that in the past.
We do that.
We do that, and we have done that in the past. And a lot of the time, it's clients themselves get busy, right? So we're not going to send an email every single week, right?
The reason we added that was because of those type of projects. But not like reading it out loud. I think it's just meant to protect you from, let's say the production date gets moved into, a day where you and I will both be unavailable, and the client specifically wants like a producer from Labs needs to be there type of situation.
Yeah.
Then I would say that's like a get out of that situation free card. But the reason we put it in was because like on the post side, we were having some issues where like it was getting delayed by months, or like it would just disappear on us. But I guess this is also good for, let's say they paid the deposit. I guess it's more so on the post actually, because if it's production related,
on the post.
The post, yeah, because
it's all about, because every client, it varies in terms of how long it takes them to review videos sometimes. Like, for example, we've had guests on the podcast in the past who have talked about their specific like 1 to 2 month process period where they're very strict on the 24 to 48 hour feedback timeline. And if they don't get that, then it's out of their hands at that point. It's like, okay, it's going to take a week. Whereas like you could have gotten 2 or 3 drafts done within like say 1 to 2 weeks. If each draft took at least a week to get feedback from, then you also need time to edit it. So that gets extended even further. So 2 weeks turns into 6 weeks, and that's what this essentially mostly will protect for. And that's where I see this one's value most of the time. Those other ones you were talking about, the outliers, there's a reason they're called outliers. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen still at the end of the day.
I think also, I said it might not be applicable to production, but I think it actually is, because let's say they need the final video done by a certain date, but they I don't know, they only have a week of availability for the production after rescheduling it, and we're shooting that whole week and we can't do it. Then I guess it would protect you in terms of like, hey, you paid the project management fee or deposit plus the pre-production, and we have done that stuff, but we can no longer do this project. I guess if you didn't have that in, you might be liable to at least give a portion of the pre-production, whatever, back. But in this case, you're basically saying, no, what you guys have paid so far is I can't give that back. So it does protect you on that end.
This is also in relation to things that happen, that change as the project goes, right? There are also situations like one of our current clients that book us in every year for certain timelines for rush edits, right? So for example, if their availability is, say, for example, on like a Tuesday, and they would need the video by the Friday or the Saturday, you can plan for that, right? You can plan for that. You build it into the cost as well for that rush edit, booking off the editor's time, our time, and the preparation time for that. Then that's fine. But that's why you need preparation, so you know how to go about that. If we schedule a shoot day for one day and the final deadline is 2 weeks out from that, right? And it's a hard deadline, but then the client reschedules that shoot day to a week before that deadline, we haven't been able to plan for that, right? And that's where the situation can get very tricky, because people haven't been booked off like that, to be able to adjust to that, and things change, right? So it's tricky in those situations.
This ties into there's a section in here that is related, but it's not in this part of the contract, and that's the revision process. So I actually include our revision process into the contract, but I put it right after the service description section. I literally just put like a line, and then below that it's just revision process, right? And over there, I basically go through like how much a minor revision costs, a major revision costs, and then what this step-by-step is. So like you get a rough cut, then a fine cut, then the final, and then I go into detail about what each one is. And another thing we put in there is the feedback part. It's how much time we need for feedback, and then how much time it takes us to work based on that feedback, and then the consequences of not following those timelines. So you should put that in there just to cover yourself, because you never know. Again, like, it's easier to have them sign off on this stuff, because then they can't say you never told us, It's in the contract.
Yeah.
You signed the contract. You're aware of everything.
Yeah. And essentially you're highlighting what potential challenges can always arise in a project, and we're outlining how we mitigate those challenges so that they can expect that there won't be any hiccups going forward, because we have already addressed any potential possible challenges or issues that could come during a project, and we know how to work around that. So that's actually a benefit to the client as well right there. Anyways, I think we've covered this pretty well at this point. Is there any last notes on this point, or I think
No, that's it. We can move on to the next one.
yeah. So the sixth one is indemnity and liability. So there, give a little bit of a breakdown of what that entails.
It's very, very straightforward. All you're basically saying in this section, it's literally like 2 sentences. All you're saying is basically that you're going to hold each other, you're going to basically not go after each other. And if you do, the most you can go after each other is the total cost of the project. That's it. So, Kirill, if you want, you could just read it out so they understand it. It's just this section here.
Yeah. So here's our example. So each party shall indemnify and hold harmless the other party from and against all loss, liability, costs, charges, claims, and damages relating to or arising from a breach of such party's representation, warranty, or agreement contained in this agreement. Keep in mind, like, these are our contract terms. Dario and I are not lawyers, so this is not like legal advice necessarily in terms of like.
This is an example of what we. Yeah, it's an example of what we have in ours.
This is what we have in ours. We're not telling you that this is exactly what you need to do. When you're creating your contracts, get it reviewed by a lawyer. Make sure that you have all your details clarified with a professional. You know, like we've done it ourselves, and we're just sharing what works for us. By all means, bring up these points to a lawyer on whether you should include it for yours, and then they will advise you on what's best for you. So that's just a little
not legal advice.
Yeah. What is that called?
I am not a lawyer.
Like the release form or something. I forget what it's called.
See, this is why we're not lawyers.
This is why. Yeah, no, I can't even remember what the protection term is.
It's called a disclaimer. I am not a lawyer.
This is where we lost the rest of the people that were listening to the podcast at this point. Like, these guys are frauds at this point.
These guys are hacks.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's that one, and then finally, our last one is non-solicitation clarity.
No. And tell them, read out the last bit. Read out the last bit.
Oh, right.
So
yeah, I didn't read out the last
bit.
bit.
So each party, and this is the part following that. So notwithstanding.
Yeah. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained herein, the maximum liability of any party hereunder shall be the fee paid for services rendered by Lapse Productions pursuant to this agreement. It keeps everything contained within the confines of this particular project. That's essentially what it does.
That's the funny part about that, is that section confuses the hell out of me, because the part before it basically says you're going to hold the other person harmless if something goes wrong. But then the section following, right, the next sentence is basically like, if you are going to sue, the most you can sue is for the fee paid. So you're like, but you just said you're going to hold the other party harm. This is why I'm not a lawyer. Why do we have
this in here? What lawyers said that we needed this?
Well, the original lawyers that did our contract put it in there, and then like everyone else is fine with it. Like, I don't know. Like,
no one has said no.
So here's the thing. This is how we got our contract done. So when Kirill and I started back in 2014, we were in our last year of uni. So I knew of we just finished, something like that.
No, we were still in uni, but we were getting close to the end.
So I was, it's funny, I was part of the business law program at Ryerson. And even though, like, I kind of don't understand law now, I understand a little bit. Anyways,
this is why he went into video. He was not hacked out to be a lawyer.
It's just too much reading, man. Too many essays. I never figured out how to write essays properly. They had this thing called the law clinic, whatever, right? In our last year, you basically got assigned a company, and you did legal documents for them with the help of one of the Bay Street law firms. I forget which one. I think it was Miller Thompson. So basically, when we started our business, I was like, oh, I'm signing us up for that because we can get our legal documents done with like a Bay Street firm. I think it was Miller Thompson. So we got them to work on our contract. So they're not stupid. They're like one of the top 5 in Canada. So if they put it in, I'm sure there was a reason why they put it into our contract.
You know what? This made me realize something. So another fun fact, Dario went for business and law, and I went to Ryerson for marketing. So we also had a marketing clinic as well, but it wasn't a clinic. It was a marketing capstone thing. So the law one was very useful for us because it got us started with a baseline for our contracts. But now I realize, yeah, it's true. We actually had a real firm doing the work, just overviewing the work of the students. Whereas the marketing clinic was just literally having students do a marketing plan for us with no experience or anything like that. And I was always wondering, like, why was that marketing plan that was presented to us not that great? It actually taught us what not to do rather than what to do.
It's funny. I remember when they were presenting it to us, I remember looking at them and going, they didn't do the work. How do I know? Because when I don't do work, I present like that.
My favorite, no. You know, it's funny because I was also in that class too, right? So I was a client and also a student, but I didn't do it on my own company. I did it on another business. So I saw what
you should have done it on your own company. I would have helped us out more.
No, it would have been, how do you say, no,
rushed.
It's a conflict, right? But what it taught me was like, okay, so now I know what not to do here. And then I took that learning and then I applied it to my group's project, and we ended up getting a 90. But anyways, so that's that. That's how we got our contracts through a legal clinic as a starting point. So if, people... Actually, that's a good suggestion for any production company starting out. Reach out to your university or any university that is looking for businesses to do legal practice work for. Then that could potentially
if they offer it.
Start
if they offer
it. Yeah. So Ryerson is one that offers it. So
it's no longer called Ryerson.
Yeah, sorry, Toronto Met or whatever. we don't go to the Met, okay? Anyways, final tip for our contracts is non-solicitation clarity. So take it away, Aaron.
Hey, take it away, Aaron. It's a second last one. There's a bonus one. If you made it this far, there is a bonus one, believe it or not. Non-solicitation. So funny story about this. I couldn't figure out this word. I couldn't figure out what the correct term... like, this was the word I was looking for, non-solicitation. But I didn't know, I couldn't figure out. I'm like, it's a word. It's not this one, but it's that. And this is why asking their legal department to review it is helpful, because they then told me to change it to non-solicitation. I put something so stupid. Like, I forget. It's so dumb. I can find it. But
what was it? It was like, no talking to the crew.
No, it was really stupid. I remember going like, it was like the slang for not solicitation. It was if you want to cut this out of the actual podcast, I can go look for it. But it was like the slang word for that. I forget. I don't remember, but it was it was the slang version for it. I was like, I can't figure it out. It's got to be this. But they then told me, no, you got to change it to this. And I'm like, oh, that was the word I was looking for.
So what does it entail? Exactly.
Yeah, non-solicitation of crew members or employees is basically they can't go and hire your freelancers or, employees behind your back. Because I'm sure it's happened where your freelancer hits you up. It's like, yo, your client asked me to shoot this for them. What should I tell them? Right? Like, it's happened to all of us at least.
Or sometimes they don't even reach out, and that's when relationships break down too.
But the thing is, if they, like, again, this is just in there to, like, if you got one of those, clients that you really don't like, and you're like, listen, I'm prepared to go to war with this guy. But for us personally, we've never had a situation where the freelancer didn't tell us, or they might have not told us, but we would have noticed it, right? But we have had situations where a very few amount of clients have tried to reach out to the freelancer, and the freelancers are like, yo, what's going on? And then I know we've told the freelancers like, oh, okay, that's good to know. I don't want them as a client anymore if they're doing that. So if you want to, go ahead. That's what we've done. Because it's kind of weird if they're gonna go and do that. You're kind of like, okay, I thought we had a thing, but if you just want the cheapest thing, then go for it. But I'm not gonna. Next time you come here, I'm gonna charge you a lot more as punishment.
Yeah, the funny thing is that this is more common than people realize, because like we also collaborate with a lot of other production companies, people specifically that have been guests on the podcast as well, and we've helped execute projects for them in Toronto for their own clients. And then we've had randomly emails where people send us, it's like, hey, like we worked with you on this, can you quote us for this? And then I'm like, wait a minute, Dario, wasn't this their client? And then Dario's like, yeah. So we called them and let them know. It's like, hey man, what the hell's going on? Like, and then even they're surprised. Like, they're like, what? He went to you? Man, these guys are cheap.
Yeah.
They were expecting something cheap, so we give them an expensive quote to make them realize how dumb that decision was.
And usually with that situation, we always say like, what do you want us to do? Like, because it's your client, and we always say like, listen, go talk to, we did it through that client, we did it through that production company, so go talk to them first.
Yeah, go talk to them. It's like this isn't what we do. Like,
yeah.
Like,
it's almost like go get the blessing from them to come work with us, because like we don't want to get in the way. Like if they're not happy with it,
we make them talk to the boss, not the boss. Like, we make them talk. No, what is it? What is the phrase?
It's go get the blessing, because it's like I don't want to step over it. Like this is all an industry of like connections. I'm not burning a bridge.
The situation. We make them confront the situation and hold them accountable to it. It's like, listen, you're trying to go behind their back. Go tell them how you were trying to do that.
Yeah, it's just awkward, man. It's like, because it's like, look, if you're doing that to them, you're going to do it to me. So even for us, it's like, why would I want to take you on as a client that I would really care for and build a long-term relationship for when you're just going to leave me and go to someone else? Like, it's going to be
they belong to the streets. Those clients, they belong
awkward.
To the streets.
The thing I hate is that it just makes everything so awkward, you know? Like, just go talk to them. And then if they say go talk to us, then okay, whatever. But if it's like, if you just come to us, I put that in there because we were doing a project for a friend of the guest, for a friend of the show. And we were hired just as crew, right?
Yeah.
And I saw during the shoot that the marketer was grabbing all the freelancers' contact information. So I mentioned, I'm like, yo, your client's about to leave you. He's like, what happened? I'm like, I was like, they grabbed everyone's contact information. I was like, don't expect more. Like, these guys will drop you any second.
Did they end up dropping them?
No, they still do work with them. Well, I don't know how much work they're still doing with them. Maybe for bigger projects they bring them on. But it's so, like, sketchy because it's like we go through the effort of finding talented people for the project. To then, like, kind of, like, steal our knowledge and then just to steal those people is so weird. But even for the freelancer, like, we have had it where it's like they just say, look, just talk to Kirill and Dario.
Yeah.
Because it's
a form
weird
of headhunting almost.
Yeah, like it's kind of like it's not cool when clients do it, and if they do it, then again, I wouldn't go after them legally, unless you wanted to. But it's more so just to protect yourself. But it's a great way to spot red flags in clients, because if they do that, then you already know where you stand with them. Yeah,
it's a good way to kind of determine what the client or the lead's character is at that point. It's a way of filtering out people that you don't really want to work with. It's like, or if in this situation, it's like, okay, so you're just looking for a one-off. So you're like, I'm not going to waste my time with this, because look, the whole point of like why we're also trying to find clients is not to do one-off projects. Like we want to try to build a relationship so that there's more consistent business coming in, because there's that classic saying where it costs 10 times more to sign a new client than to serve an existing client, right? Because the amount of time and effort it takes to bring in a new client is very different than working with the same one year over year. Because if you're working with the same client year over year, you don't have to explain your process to them. You don't have to explain your contracts to them. You don't have to explain the scope as much. You already understand what is needed, and you guys can just kind of move through it, right? New client, you have to do meeting after meeting, call after call sometimes to really drive the point home as well, right? Like we've had that where like some new clients have come in and you'd have to have like maybe 3 calls, 4 calls over the course of a few months before they're finally ready to actually move forward with a project. And then you put in all that time and effort, but now you have a consistent client, so then it was worth it, right? But why would you go through that entire process if you know that they're going to drop you like a hot potato just for a quick buck, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so those are our 7 main tips, but we have, as Dario mentioned, another bonus one for you, and which is
expiration.
And do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that? Basically, it's the best before date, like higher lapse before it expires.
I think we kind of touched on it briefly in other points, but basically it just states, again, like if it's been too long, like if the client like stopped communicating with you for a period of, I think I put 6 months in here, then the project is considered closed. Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, like things change for clients on their end, marketing wise, right? So they might be working on a project and then they might realize like, oh, you know, like our goals have changed. Let's just move on to something else. And then whatever at that point, that just basically shows that there is an actual expiration date for any kind of project. But we've already kind of explained this in depth with examples in previous points, but
yeah, basically just, you know, if it's been a while and you've tried to communicate to the client and they still haven't gone back to you, and it's been again, here I have 6 months, you could do something else. Actually, I might change it to something shorter. Then you can just say that the project is considered finished, even though it might not be fully finished, and no refunds will be issued for whatever work is still not completed. So for example, if the client already paid you the full amount, let's say 10,000, you've done 6,000 of that work, the remaining amount is just in the post, but they just won't give you feedback, won't let you know what's going on or what they want, then you could just close it off at that point. It's just a way to just, like, again, and if they want to restart, then you have to issue a complete new contract. That's how we have it set up.
Yeah.
Very straightforward.
Yep. I think that pretty much covers everything. Those are our 7 + 1 + 2 tips on what to include in
Kirill,
your...
sorry. I put abandoned. I said abandoned, but another term you should include is also delaying. If they keep consistently delaying the project, then that still counts as part of this clause.
But then you'd have to define delaying, right? Like, so delaying can't mean, for example, they're trying to still determine some creative elements for the project.
So I have
delayed.
So what I put here is 3 different options. So I did like, if this happens, blah 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 blah. There's a paragraph of stuff, and then I put or this other paragraph, right? So for that is if the client, one of them is, for example, if the client has continually delayed or abandoned advancing the project for a period of 6 months after the signing of this contract. So you, like, I think I put like for this option, like the deposits won't be refunded or whatnot. So it could be something as simple as they keep delaying the production date. So let's say we were the paid project management fee and the pre-production, and they keep pushing the production by like a month, by another month. Let's say you're like, listen, I'm tired of dealing with this client. I don't want to have to pay back the pre-production. This is just like a get out of free card. It's like, look, it's been over 6 months since we signed this contract. This contract is now null and void. We can't give it back that. So we have to sign a complete new contract, right? Because sometimes they might just be wasting your time, right? So it protects you with, like, again, all the 3 stages. Pre-production, let's say they gave you a deposit, right?
This is why you have deposits. This is why you have deposits, so that it holds your clients accountable to move, to see the project through, right? It's a motivator for that. Because yeah, like imagine if you don't do deposits with a new client and like you have your invoices sent out later because you have your payment terms, then it's like all of a sudden like, oh yeah, we're done. We don't want to do this anymore. And you have no money in your account as a result of that. And all that time and effort you spend onboarding them, doing pre-production prep work and all that kind of stuff then just goes out the window at that point. That's what deposits are there for, following through.
So what I have there, I just quickly read it. Excuse me. Is basically if the client has paid the deposit and no pre-production work has begun, then this. The next one is like if the client has paid blah 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 and the pre-production work has begun, then this. And then the other one is if, like, you can just include it for each stage of your process. So often with contracts, it's better to be broad than really define your stuff. But for stuff like this, it's probably better to just stipulate exact situations, because again, like if you ever have to go to court for this stuff, if you have different situations, one of them is going to be applicable, right?
Yeah.
So
and then it makes everything straightforward. And
like again,
those
if
legal
it's all
proceedings won't take a while as a result.
I mean, they'll probably take a while, but it's more so
as
about
long.
having all the options available to cover all your bases, right? So then it's less open to interpretation, you know?
Yeah. But anyway, like the whole point is these are all there set in place to help protect you and your client. You never want to have to go back to them with the client. That's not the whole point of having these. You want to build good relationships, and you should always be striving to do that and maintain a level of professionalism between yourself and the client in that relationship. And as long as you go by that mantra, then you're gonna do great work with great people, and that's essentially the goal.
Yeah, and my only note to end this off is basically, again, have the legal review it. If they come back with you with changes that you don't want to do, you don't have to include them. Just remember that. Like, you can always push back on their notes as well. So don't just bend over backwards for whatever their legal team wants, because sometimes it might not be in your best favor. You just have to make a judgment call. Usually
it's not in your best interest. It's usually in the client's best interest.
Surprisingly enough, like every time we've had to make a change from their legal team, it's always been fine. Like I think they're actually not allowed to, or I think that like if it ever goes to like a court, the judge would probably not look favorably if it's something that was in their best. I don't know. I'm just talking out my, But
yeah, we're not lawyers, guys. Dario took a moment of pretending to be a lawyer. You watched a little bit too much Suits back in university.
I think it's because like every time like we've had notes come back, it's usually from like a blue chip client, and like their notes are nothing nefarious. I think maybe if you deal with some smaller client, like small to medium business, I think maybe small business, you might have to keep your eyes open.
This is
companies,
the easiest.
We haven't noticed anything.
This is the easiest thing to just recommend. If a client's legal team comes back with a suggestion or a change, have your own lawyer review it and make sure it's all good. That way you have peace of mind. That's it. Just have another lawyer take a look.
You could also probably just ask ChatGPT. It's like, I don't understand. Like if it's confused, it's like, what does this mean? Actually, one cool thing you can do is you could save your contract as a PDF. And then say, hey, this is my contract, feed it to chat, and then say, this is the term, this is the section they want to change. They want to change it to this. Would this be in my benefit or not? What does it really mean? That's another thing you could do too.
I wonder if there are AI lawyer. wonder if there are AI lawyer systems already in place. I feel like
my buddy was just finishing. Listen, my buddy was just finishing up his law school. And he said he was just using ChatGPT to like understand and interpret a ton of his readings.
Oh, just for him to understand the stuff and just have it explained to him in a good way. That's cool.
Well, the thing is, he said they would make him read like over 100 pages a day or something. So he's like, he was having a hard time just getting through the work, right? So he would feed it to chat and have it like interpret it for him and make notes and everything.
I don't. It's not a good thing when you think about it,
I mean, if I listen, I'm just saying lawyers are going to get replaced.
If it's a supplementary thing, sure. If it's a supplementary thing, sure. But if you're not actually, when you're in law, imagine if like you had a doctor or a surgeon that went through medical school through ChatGPT. You know, I don't think you'd want him under the knife. I don't think you want to be under his knife.
I think all those professions are on the way out anyways. I mean, do you really
Surgeons
trust someone?
are not on the way out, Dario.
Buddy, what are you talking about? They're starting to do like remote surgeries now, which means like pretty soon they could probably just have an AI do it. 5 to 10 years, it's not out of the equation.
Maybe, but
you
anyway,
know they've already
that's
they've
all
done
stuff for another episode.
Look, they've done studies where ChatGPT gives better medical
advice.
Not advice. They're able to
diagnose
better than doctors, which I'm not surprised. Like, how can you trust someone that hasn't slept in like 2 days? Have you ever worked like 12 hours straight? You're like, you can't even think properly. Those guys are doing surgeries. So, I mean, I would probably trust an AI over a doctor in the future.
Fair enough to that point. But anyway, we're digressing from this episode. But anyways, those are our 7 plus 1 or 2 tips for the contracts. Let us know if there are any interesting points that you or tips that you have done for your contracts, and maybe we'll get a lawyer to review and see if it's worth it for us to put in ours.
Yeah. Comment them down below. Maybe we might incorporate it into our next contract.
Yeah. And if you guys have any ideas for potential topics that you want us to do some research on and kind of discuss in future CGC episodes, also let us know, and we're always open to that. And thanks for watching.
Oh, and before you go, we do have a blog post for this episode. So if you want to see the exact clauses that we use on our contracts, I did put screenshots up under each point. So if you want to know, go check out the blog post. It'll be linked somewhere here in the description. So yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Take care, and see you on the next one. Thanks for listening to this episode of Creatives Grab Coffee. Please make sure to follow and engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast app.
Creatives Grab Coffee is created by Labs Productions, a video production company based in Toronto, Canada.
Creatives Grab Coffee is also sponsored by...
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all gonna have a real good time.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.